I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened recently. To be honest, I never imagined I'd be in this situation. If you had told me a year ago that I'd end up here, feeling this guilty, confused, and torn, I wouldn't have believed you. But here I am, sitting alone in my apartment, trying to make sense of the choices I've made. It all started so subtly. Like most things, it wasn't a huge, dramatic event that led to where I am now. It was a slow shift, almost like the earth moving beneath my feet, and me not realizing it until the ground cracked open. I'm married, been with Steve for almost 5 years now. We were happy at first, or so I thought. I mean, we still laugh together, we still talk about our day. We still do all the things couples are supposed to do. But lately, I've been feeling, I don't know, disconnected. It's hard to explain. I love him, I really do, but I felt like something was missing. There was this emptiness in me that I couldn't fill with the usual things. Our dates, our conversations, even our intimacy started to feel routine. I didn't know how to talk about it with him. I didn't know how to explain that I felt like I was just going through the motions. So I started looking elsewhere, not consciously at first, just, well, you know when you start noticing someone? It was like that. His name is Jack, and I met him through work. We started talking, and it was casual at first, just small talk. But there was this energy, this spark I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just physical, though that part was definitely there. We had a connection, an ease with each other that made me feel seen in a way that I hadn't realized I'd been craving. I know this sounds awful. Don't get me wrong. I knew it was wrong from the start. But there was something about Jack that drew me in. It felt good to feel desired again, to feel important. With Steve, it felt like I had become one half of a couple, just another part of a machine that functioned but didn't really thrive. Jack wasn't perfect. He had his issues, his flaws, but for some reason, when I was with him, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in months. It was like I was a different person when we were together. I'd look forward to our conversations, the stolen moments. And one day, it just happened. We kissed. It wasn't planned, it wasn't something I saw coming, but once it happened, I couldn't deny it. I wanted more. I was scared at first, terrified actually. I kept telling myself that I'd stop, that I'd be strong enough to push him away, but the more I told myself that, the more I found myself making excuses to see him again. It wasn't about love. Not at first. It was about escaping the loneliness I was feeling, the dissatisfaction that had slowly crept into my life without me even realizing it. Looking back now, I see how selfish that was. I see how I was running away from something that was fixable, from my own responsibilities and emotional needs. But in the moment, it didn't feel like that. It felt like a way to breathe again. I never thought Steve would find out. I convinced myself that it was just a few moments of weakness, that it wouldn't affect anything. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I could feel the guilt building up every time I was with Jack, every time I snuck away for an hour or two. It wasn't just the physical act, it was the emotional distance I was creating with Steve. And then, of course, I got caught. I don't even know how it happened. Maybe I was too careless? Or maybe Steve just started to notice the little things. The extra hours I spent at work, the way I'd check my phone in the middle of the night. But one evening, after I came home from seeing Jack, Steve confronted me. His eyes. God, I'll never forget the look in his eyes. He wasn't angry, not at first. He was just hurt. Completely crushed. And I knew, in that moment, everything was about to change. The night Steve confronted me felt like it lasted a lifetime. I could barely breathe as I stood there in front of him, feeling my chest tighten with the weight of everything I'd been hiding. It was the kind of silence that wraps around you. Makes it hard to think clearly, hard to find the right words. I know what's been going on, he said quietly. He didn't shout, didn't accuse me. He just said it, his voice calm but breaking. And that's when I realized, no matter how much I thought I could get away with it, no matter how carefully I had managed to compartmentalize my life, I had hurt him in a way that couldn't be undone. I tried to deny it at first. What are you talking about? I stammered, like I wasn't the one responsible for everything that had happened. It wasn't even a lie I believed anymore. It was a reflex, a desperate attempt to hold on to some semblance of control over the situation. But Steve wasn't buying it. He told me he'd seen the messages, the calls, and that he'd been following me that day, waiting for me to come home. He'd known for a while, but he hadn't confronted me until he was sure. I could see the pain in his face. Steve's always been the kind of guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, and in that moment, I saw every ounce of love he had for me. The love that I had betrayed. It made everything worse. I wanted to reach out, to apologize, but I didn't know how to fix what I had broken. Why? He asked, his voice cracking. Why would you do this to me? That was the question I kept asking myself. Why did I do it? Was it just because I felt ignored, alone, like I wasn't enough? Was it Jack's attention that made me feel alive again? Or was it just the idea of being wanted in a way I hadn't felt in a long time? I wanted to say all of that. I wanted to explain that it wasn't about him, not really that it was about me being lost. But instead, I stood there, frozen, unable to come up with the words. I didn't mean to hurt you? I whispered, though even as I said it, I knew it wasn't enough. How could it be? There was no way to take back what had been done. No way to erase the betrayal that had already settled between us like a thick fog. Steve didn't cry. He didn't break down, at least not in front of me. Instead, he just looked at me, as if trying to figure out who I was, trying to make sense of everything that had changed. He said, I don't even know who you are anymore. That hit me like a punch to the gut. That was the part I hadn't prepared for, the moment when the person I loved looked at me and didn't recognize me. I felt like a stranger to him. And in a way, I felt like a stranger to myself, too. But there was another part of me. Something I didn't like, something that scared me, that couldn't help but feel relieved. In that moment, I wasn't the perfect wife anymore. I wasn't the woman who had to be everything for everyone. I could just be myself, with all my mess and confusion. I didn't have to keep pretending. The guilt was crushing, but it was also freeing in a way I couldn't explain. I wasn't hiding anymore. And yet, I would have given anything to go back to when things were simple, when I didn't have to make these choices. After that night, everything changed. I thought I could still keep everything together, that I could continue pretending things were normal, but I couldn't. The tension between Steve and me was unbearable. It was like walking on eggshells. We still spoke, still lived together, but there was this invisible wall between us. And the worst part, I was the one who built it. I tried to talk to him, tried to explain why I had done what I did, but words didn't help. I was feeling lost. I told him once, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how we got here, but I needed something, Steve. I needed to feel like I wasn't invisible. He didn't respond at first. He just stared at me, his eyes full of sorrow and disbelief. Then he said, what you needed wasn't Jack. What you needed was me. And I was here. I've always been here. That hit me harder than anything else. I had told myself over and over that I wasn't getting the attention I deserved, that I was invisible in our relationship. But when Steve said that, I realized how much he had tried, how much he had given me. The problem wasn't him. It was me. I had failed to see the love and support he was offering because I was too busy looking for validation elsewhere. I didn't have all the answers then. I still don't. But I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't keep going down this path of self-doubt and selfishness. I had to own up to what I'd done, and I had to make things right, even if it meant facing the consequences of my actions. But I wasn't ready to give up on everything yet. Steve and I were at a crossroads. I could see that. The question was whether we could move past this, whether he could forgive me, and whether I could forgive myself. The days after the confrontation felt like a blur. Each one dragging on, filled with heavy silence and awkward glances. We didn't talk about it much. Steve seemed to retreat into himself, withdrawing from me in ways that felt both heartbreaking and, oddly, comforting. I think he was trying to figure out if there was anything left to salvage between us, but neither of us was ready to have the hard conversation about what came next. At first, I wanted to pretend like everything could go back to normal, like I could just apologize enough times and make things right. I thought maybe if I showed him how sorry I was, maybe if I made grand gestures to prove how much I regretted what I had done, we could fix it. But no matter what I did, the space between us only grew wider. I remember one night in particular when Steve and I finally sat down to talk, really talk. I could tell he'd been thinking about it all day, his mind racing, trying to come to some conclusion that would make sense of the mess I'd created. I had been pacing the apartment, waiting for the right moment to speak, but there wasn't a right moment anymore. It was all wrong. Do you even love me anymore? He asked, his voice breaking as he looked at me. There was so much pain in his eyes, but there was something else too. Something I hadn't expected. Disappointment. I had betrayed his trust, and the reality of that hit me harder than anything else. I don't know, I admitted, my throat tight. I love you. I do. But I've been so confused, Steve. I thought that what I was missing could only be found in someone else. I was looking for something that I should have been looking for within myself, or within us. Steve's face tightened at my words. So that's it? You just wanted something else? Someone else? You think that was the answer? His question stung. Because, deep down, I knew he was right. Jack wasn't the answer. He wasn't anything more than a distraction. A temporary relief from the deeper issues I hadn't wanted to face. I hadn't been fair to Steve. I hadn't given him a chance to be the man I needed him to be, because I had already convinced myself that he wasn't capable of it, and in doing that, I had let myself spiral into something I couldn't control. I wasn't trying to hurt you, I said, feeling the tears finally spill down my cheeks. I wasn't trying to make you feel like you weren't enough, because you are. You're everything I could have ever wanted, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I've done to us. Steve didn't speak for a long time after that. He just sat there, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table, like he was trying to make sense of everything. I knew he was in pain. I could see it in the way he looked at me, in the way he avoided my gaze when I tried to meet his eyes. Why didn't you come to me? He finally asked, his voice quieter, more resigned. Why didn't you talk to me about whatever it was you were feeling? I wanted to say that I hadn't known how, that I had been so scared of admitting how unhappy I was, even though I knew I had to. But the truth was, I had been afraid of facing it, too. Afraid of being vulnerable, of showing him the cracks in me that I had tried to hide. The ones that had made me feel small, like I wasn't enough in this marriage. I was ashamed, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want you to think I was weak, or that I wasn't happy with you. And I didn't know how to fix it. So? You ran to someone else? Steve's words were sharp, and I could see that anger was beginning to surface again. It was a raw, jagged kind of anger, the kind that came when a person realized they had been lied to, deceived. I nodded, tears slipping down my face as I tried to explain. I know it was wrong. I know I should have come to you, that we should have talked about it, but I didn't. And now I've ruined everything. I hurt you, and I don't know how to fix it. Steve stood up abruptly and walked over to the window, staring out into the night. I don't know what to do with you, with us, he said, his voice distant. I don't know how to trust you again. I don't know if I ever will. Those words hit me like a slap in the face. I had betrayed his trust in the most fundamental way, and now I was going to have to live with the consequences. I could tell Steve was torn. He didn't want to give up on us. But at the same time, the wound I had caused was deep. I couldn't expect him to forgive me overnight. I couldn't even expect him to forgive me at all. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now, I said, standing up and walking toward him. I know that's not possible, but I'm asking you to give us a chance to work through this. Please. I love you, and I want to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. Steve was quiet for a long time, and for a moment, I thought he might walk away from me. But then, slowly, he turned to face me. His eyes were tired, almost defeated. But there was something else there. Something that made me believe there was still a chance, however small, for us to repair what had been broken. I don't know if we can fix this, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. But I'm willing to try. I don't want to give up on us just yet. I won't lie. There were days when I wasn't sure we'd make it through. After that night, when Steve said he was willing to try, things didn't magically get better. If anything, they got harder. The tension between us felt suffocating, like an invisible weight pressing down on both of us. I could feel the walls I had built, the trust I had shattered, and every small moment, every glance, felt like a reminder of what I had done. We started going to therapy. At first, it felt awkward. It was hard to sit in that room, face to face with Steve, with a stranger in between us, trying to hash through everything I had done. Therapy forced us to confront the uncomfortable truths, the ones I had been avoiding for so long. Why did you feel the need to betray him? The therapist asked one day, looking at me with that calm, unwavering gaze. What was missing in your marriage that led you to seek validation outside of it? I could feel Steve's eyes on me, full of pain and questioning. It was hard to answer, to admit that I had been emotionally distant, that I had been selfish. But I had to. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The truth was, I had been looking for something to fill the emptiness inside of me, something I should have been working on within myself, or something I should have communicated to Steve. I thought I wasn't enough, I said, my voice shaky as I stared at my hands. I thought that if I could feel seen again, if I could feel special, I wouldn't feel so lost. But instead, I just hurt the person who loved me the most. The words felt like a weight in my chest, but they needed to be said. Steve didn't say anything for a long time. He didn't interrupt me, didn't get angry or defensive. But I could see the pain in his eyes. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about all the years of neglect, all the times I had taken him for granted. The therapist asked him, too, what he needed from me to rebuild the trust. It wasn't an easy question for Steve. I could see the gears turning in his head. For so long, he had just assumed I was happy, assumed everything was fine. But now, with the weight of my betrayal hanging over us, I could see that he was questioning everything. I need to feel like I'm enough for you, he said, his voice soft but firm. I need to know that you're really here, that you're invested in making this work. Not just with words, but with actions. His words hit me like a wake-up call. I had taken him for granted for too long. I had assumed he would always be there, that I could keep neglecting him without consequence. But now, the consequences were in front of me, and they were real. He wasn't asking for much. He just wanted me to show up, to be present, and to start putting in the effort I had been avoiding. We both started making changes, slowly but surely. Steve was patient with me, which was more than I deserved. He didn't immediately trust me again, but he was willing to try. I started being more open with him, sharing my feelings and frustrations instead of bottling them up. I made a conscious effort to show him that I valued him, that he wasn't invisible to me anymore. But even as I did this, I could still feel the guilt gnawing at me. It wasn't like one day the weight of what I had done just disappeared. It still haunted me. Every time I looked at Steve, every time I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes, I knew I had to prove to him, and to myself, that I was capable of being the person he needed me to be. But that was going to take time. It wasn't something I could fix overnight. The hardest part was seeing Steve struggle with his own doubts. There were moments when I could tell he was holding back, when he would pull away emotionally because he didn't want to let himself be hurt again. There were times when he would get quiet, retreat into himself, and I knew that he was still processing everything. He was still dealing with the betrayal, and I couldn't force him to heal faster than he was ready to. But we were trying. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. It's been a few months since that night. Things are still far from perfect, but they're better. We're not where we used to be, but we're not stuck either. We're learning how to trust each other again, how to communicate in ways we hadn't before. We're trying to rebuild, not just the marriage, but the foundation of who we are as individuals. It's not easy, and there are still moments of doubt, still moments where I wonder if this is something that will ever truly heal. But what I've realized is that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about understanding it, owning it, and deciding to move forward despite it. I can't change what I did, I can't undo the hurt I caused, but I can try every day to be a better version of myself, to be more honest, more open, and more present in my relationship with Steve. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough.